Assalamu alaikum student. My name is Kamran Akram Shaikh. I am Assistant Professor of Economics at Government College of Commerce and Economics, Karachi. Today we will discuss about price elasticity of demand. So before we start the topic, let's recall law of demand. Law of demand said there exists an inverse relationship between price of product and its quantity demand. Means when price of product increase, quantity demand will decrease, and when price of product decrease, quantity demand will increase. It just tells us about the direction of change. It will not sit, it will not tell us about the magnitude of this change, that how much quantity demand increase and how much quantity demand decrease. The magnitude law of demand is unable to explain the change in this magnitude, to measure the size of this magnitude. So for this purpose, there is another tool in economics. We call it price elasticity of demand. Price elasticity of demand, it will measure the magnitude of this change. As you see, for some product, demand change at very large extent due to small change in price, and for some other product, demand do not change at very large extent, or even for some product, demand is very non-responsive to change in price. So let's define price elasticity of demand. What is meant by price elasticity of demand? It measures the degree of responsiveness of quantity demand to change in price, and it is denoted by a Greek letter epsilon. So it measures degree of response. Degree of response of what? Degree of response of change in price. Okay, when price change, how quantity demand react in this due to change in this price. So it measures the degree of responsiveness of quantity demand to change in price. And how do we measure it? So to measure elasticity, we have a mathematical formula: percentage change in quantity demand over percentage change in price. And symbolically we can write it as you see, percentage change in quantity over percentage change in price. So there are different possibilities which are called degrees of price elasticity of demand. Okay, for some cases demand is very responsive, for some cases it is irresponsive or less responsive. So these are called degrees of price elasticity of demand. When elasticity of demand is greater than 1, so in all the cases we compare elasticity with number 1, with a unitary method. So here the sign of price elasticity of demand is not important. Here the magnitude or number is more important. That is why we only focused on the number, whether it is greater than 1, less than 1, or equals to 1. Because the price elasticity of demand, it is always negative. We are not interested in its sign here in case of price elasticity of demand. So when elasticity of demand is greater than 1, it is called relatively elastic demand. When it is less than 1, it is called relatively inelastic demand. And when it is equal to 1, it is called unitary elastic demand. And these are the two extreme cases: when elasticity of demand tends to infinity, it means demand is perfectly elastic, and when elasticity of demand is equal to 0, it is perfectly inelastic demand. What does it means? Uh, so let's see the next slide. So demand is said to be relatively elastic when a percentage change in quantity demand is more than or greater than percentage change in price, or when a proportionate change in demand is greater than proportionate change in price, or in other words, when a small change in price cause a large change in quantity demand, it is called relatively elastic demand. So one can easily observe in the given diagram. Here we have DD demand curve. We have taken quantity demand on horizontal axis and price on vertical axis. So here, when the price of product is P1, quantity demand is Q1. When price increases to P2, quantity demand decreases to Q2. And one can easily observe the change in price and quantity. The change in price is small and change in quantity demand is large. It means here percentage, if we measure its percentage change, obviously it will also be a greater for quantity demand and it is less for the price. Okay. Now see what is meant by relatively inelastic demand means. So here we have plotted again the demand curve, and you can observe that here demand curve is relatively steeper. It means when demand curve is steeper, it shows relatively inelastic demand. What does it mean? When the percentage change in quantity demand is less than the percentage change in price, or when the proportionate change in coin demand is less than the proportionate change in price, it is known as relatively inelastic demand. Or in other words, when a big change, a large change in price cause a very small change in quantity demand, it means here quantity demand is less sensitive. Here quantity demand is less sensitive to change in price. And demand is relatively inelastic mostly for necessities. Demand is relatively elastic for luxuries, and it is relatively inelastic for necessities like bread, butter, tea, milk. These are less sensitive to change in price. If someone wants to have a cup of tea daily, so he will buy at any price. If price become double, even there is 100% change in price, coin demand will not decrease because it is necessary of life. It is goods for survival. Okay. Now see that third case. So here again demand curve is negatively sloped, but demand curve is negatively sloped, but it is moderately elastic, or it is, we can say it is 45-degree line almost. So here in this case, the change in price and change in coin demand both are equal. So this is the case of unitary elastic demand. When elasticity of demand is equals to 1, we call it unitary elastic demand. In this case, percentage change in price and percentage change in coin demand both are exactly same. And demand curve is unitary elastic mostly for the normal goods. The normal goods that we use in routine life. Now see the next case. So this is one extreme when demand curve is perfectly elastic. So demand curve is perfectly elastic when it become horizontal line. It is parallel to horizontal axis. In this case, a small change, very, very small change in price, which we are unable to see here. It is too small to visualize here. A small change in very small change in price cause a very large change in quantity demand. This is called perfectly elastic demand curve, and this type of demand curve is observed in perfectly competitive market where an individual firm is too small to affect the price level. So whatever the price is set by the market, you have to sell it. You cannot affect you cannot affect the price of product because your size is too small. Your total output, the proportion of your output in total output is too small to affect the market situation. Therefore, is in price cannot be changed in perfectly competitive market. Okay. So when the change in coin demand is very large due to very small change in price, it is called perfectly elastic demand. And in this case, the elasticity of demand tends to infinity. Now see the next case where demand curve is perfectly inelastic. So I have summarized all the 5 cases here. So in this case, when demand curve is vertical, the middle one, see the middle one, where demand curve is vertical, it means here quantity demand. In case of perfectly inelastic demand, the quantity demand is insensitive to change in price, and this is mostly for the necessities. It can be for the we can apply this type of demand curve on the medicines. A person who is using insulin, a diabetic patient who is using insulin, so whatever the price of product, he must buy it at a, so at any price he will buy it. So demand curve is relatively inelastic when a very large change is unable to change in quantity demand. Okay. Now see the diagram altogether. So here we have 5 diagram. In the upper side, first we have drawn perfectly elastic demand, then perfectly inelastic demand. The third one is relatively elastic demand. Fourth one is unitary elastic demand, and this fifth one is in the lower side, right side. This is relatively, this is unitary elastic demand, in fact, and the fourth one is relatively inelastic. So in all the 5 cases, this is demand curve. These are all demand curve. The slopes are different. In third case, it is flatter. In first case, it is horizontal line. In third case, it is relatively flatter. So first one is perfectly elastic. Here, the slope is 0. In first case, when slope of line is 0, elasticity is infinity. It means a steeper demand curve is less elastic, a flatter demand curve is more elastic. In second case, let's see the second case. In second case, slope is maximum. Here slope is infinity, but elasticity is 0. In first case, slope is 0, elasticity is infinity. In the second case, perfectly inelastic demand, slope is 0. Slope is maximum, but elasticity is 0. In third case, relatively elastic demand. Here it is relatively flatter, so it is relatively elastic. In fourth case, it is relatively steeper, so relatively inelastic. And in fifth case, it is 45-degree line almost. So this is unitary elastic demand curve. So we can conclude that there exists an inverse relationship between slope and value of slope and value of elasticity. When slope is 0, elasticity is infinity. When slope is infinity, elasticity is 0, and so on. Okay. So there are different types of elasticity of demand. The first one we have discussed is price elasticity of demand. So to distinguish with the cross price elasticity, we can write it as own price elasticity of demand. Otherwise, both are same. Price elasticity of demand that we have discussed previously and the own price elasticity, both are same. It is just the word own is used just to distinguish between own and cross. So there are three types of, otherwise there are large number of elasticity used in economics: elasticity of demand, elasticity of supply, elasticity of import, elasticity of export, elasticity of substitution. There are so many types of elasticity, but major to we are discussing here are own price elasticity of demand, cross price elasticity of demand, and income elasticity of demand. This is included in our first year course as well as in BCom. So own price elasticity, cross price elasticity, and income elasticity, let us discuss in detail. So own price elasticity we have already defined. It measures the degree of responsiveness of quantity demand to change in price. It measures the degree of responsiveness of quantity demand to change in price of that product. It means if quantity demand change due to change in price of that product, because sometime, as we have discussed in demand theory, there are some other factors. There are some substitute good, there are some complementary good, there are some related good altogether which can affect the demand. But here we are only concerned with the change in price of that product. If we are talking about the change in quantity demand of good X, so we are talking about the change in price of good X only. So it is also denoted by epsilon. The formula we have already discussed. It is equals to percentage change in quantity demand over percentage change in price. Okay, and again the magnitude can be greater than 1, equals to 1, or less than 1, but its sign is always negative. The sign, but we are not interested in sign, we are only interested in its magnitude. The price elasticity of demand is greater than 1, less than 1, or equals to 1. Let's discuss cross price elasticity. The definition is more or less same. The only difference is, let's discuss it. It measures the degree of responsiveness of quantity demand of one product to change in price of other product Y. Here X and Y, let's suppose these are two goods. So it measures the degree of responsiveness of quantity demand of one product X to change in price of other product Y. And it is also denoted by Greek letter epsilon. And in subscript, I have written XY, so X and Y are two products. It means we are measuring cross price elasticity between good X and good Y. And why it is used? So cross price elasticity is used to find the relationship between the two products And this relationship can be substitute good, this can be complementary good. So cross price elasticity is used to find the relationship between good X and Y, or between the two goods. Either it is substitute good or complementary good. Even if we can say about two goods are substitute, just see the direction in change in price and quantity. The cross price elasticity will give you the magnitude of this change. Either goods are, even we know the goods are substitute. Now we have to find either it is perfect substitute or close substitute or weak substitute, because two goods can be substitute, but it is not necessarily that these two goods are perfect substitute. Like in case of Pepsi and Coke, these are almost perfect substitute. But if we said about Pepsi and Ruafza, let's suppose, these are also substitute, but these are not perfect substitute. One is carbonated drink and other one is plain drink. So these are substitute, but not close substitute. We can say it is weak substitute. Similarly, if we said about petrol and CNG, these are substitute good, but these are not perfect substitute good, because some engines are specially designed for petrol and some are specially designed for CNG. So cross price elasticity measures this type of relationship and degree of relationship. So here the sign is important. Here the sign is important. Cross price elasticity can be negative, it can be positive. Unlike demand, unlike own price elasticity, which is always negative. So in that case we are not interested, in sign. But here in case of cross price elasticity, we are very much interested in its sign, because it is tell us about the type of relationship. Let's see in the next slide. So if cross price elasticity is positive, it means X and Y are substitute good. If cross price elasticity is negative, then X and Y are complementary goods. So here sign shows the type of relationship between the goods, substitute or complement, and its number, magnitude. If this number is greater than 1, it means goods are close substitute. If this is less than 1, it is weak substitute. Similarly for the complementary goods. So the sign shows a type of relationship, and the magnitude shows the degree of relationship, weak, strong or close. And if the number is 0, if cross price elasticity is 0, it means there is no relationship between good X and Y. And when this happens, when the percentage change in quantity demand is 0, when percentage change in quantity demand is 0, this is the formula. For finding cross price elasticity. Here we are changing. In numerator we have percentage change in quantity demand, and in denominator we have percentage change in price of other good Y. In numerator, percentage change in quantity demand of good X over percentage change in quantity demand of good Y. So the answer is 0 when the value in numerator is 0. It means if the price of good Y is increase or decrease at whatever the amount, but change in quantity demand is 0. So 0 over number is always 0. So it means X and Y are two non-related goods. It means if good X is petrol and good Y is cold drink, these are non-related goods. Now discuss the third case, third type of elasticity of demand, it is income elasticity of demand. Uh, so in law of demand, in theory of demand, we have seen that demand also change with the change in consumer income. But for some product, demand change at very large extent. For some product, demand change at a lower extent. It is measured by the income elasticity of demand. And how do we define it? It measures the degree of responsiveness. Of point demand to change in income of the consumer, and it is denoted by a Greek letter epsilon. Sorry, this is mistake. It is denoted by a Greek letter nu. Here I am. So it is used to find the nature of product, whether goods are normal, luxury, or inferior good. So income elasticity of demand is used to find the nature of product. Either it is superior good, luxury good, or normal good, or inferior good. The formula for finding income elasticity of demand is same. The only difference is here it measures the change in quantity demand due to percentage change in income. Again, here sign is important. If income elasticity of demand is positive, so income elasticity of demand is positive for superior good and for normal good. It is negative for inferior good. Income elasticity demand is positive, but its number is too large. And in some books it is written if it is greater than 3, it is called superior good, and it is less than 3, it is normal good. But if it is negative, then it shows inferior good. Inferior good, what are inferior good? Inferior goods are too cheaper good, or we can say that it is a good which is used by the low income group, and they spend almost all of his income on this inferior good. So when their income elasticity of demand is negative, it shows inferior good. So we cannot stamp the product it is superior or inferior. It is subject to income group, to which income group you belongs. We cannot stamp that this one is superior. Even 800cc car is inferior good for higher income group, but it is superior for the very lower income group. So inferior good is subject to the income group. That's why income elasticity is used to find the nature of product, inferior, superior, and normal. So I have further more to describe elasticity, but this I am ending here. It is almost half an hour lecture, so I am ending here. In the next lecture, we will continue price elasticity of demand. Okay. Thank you.